Hello, my name's Lauren, and if you've not seen my channel before, I like to talk about all things book related. So we're going to get on to November's reading wrap up. It's just crazy that we're on November's already. I read 6 books in November, which is much better than I thought I would do. If you watched October's reading wrap up, which I'll leave a link to below, I read 10 books, even though I actually only talked about 9 of them in the video because I completely missed one off. But yeah, November turned out to be a much better month. I did not think I would get through 6 books, mainly because there was a book this month that I was really taking my time with and really wanted to digest all of it, which we will get on to soon. But yeah, overall, quite a good month. Quite a lot of 5 stars this month as well, which is surprising. If you've never seen my monthly reading wrap-ups before, my star ratings tend to be quite high because I am not shy when it comes to DNFing books. So it is very, very rare that there will be anything rated below a 3. However, we do have a book in this video that is rated below a 2. So we will get onto that as well very shortly. So kicking off the month in November, I read How to Survive a Horror Movie. So at the start of November, I was still on my autumn reading list. So I have an autumn reading list that I create every year, and I start it on the 1st of September, and then I usually carry on until like the mid to end of November. So this year I finished my autumn reading list on the 13th of November, I think. And I have actually ranked all of the books that I read. I read 22 books. And I think I DNF'd 5 in that time, but I have ranked them all in a separate video, so I will leave a link to that below if you want to see all the books that I read in autumn, and I ranked them from worst to best, so you can see my opinions on that. But yeah, I was still very much on the autumn like spooky books, so I read How to Survive a Horror Movie. I gave this 3.75. It just wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be. It is a young adult horror / thriller novel, and I quite like young adult books. The issue wasn't with it being a YA novel. It was just very on the nose at times, and I feel like I'm a huge horror movie fan, and I feel like in order to read this book and enjoy it, you do have to be a horror movie fan. However, like I say, it was very on the nose at times and really, really played up to those like horror movie tropes. And the ending of this book just was not for me at all. There is going to be a sequel to it, and I don't think I'll be reading it. I just did not like how this ended. I won't be doing any spoilers for if you do want to read it. But yeah, the ending just wasn't for me at all, and it said quite a lot throughout the book that the main characters weren't fans of horror movie sequels, and then they've made a sequel to this book, and it didn't align for me. I did not like that. So yeah, How to Survive a Horror Movie got 3.75 stars. Then we had a string of excellent reads. Like my next 3 books were all rated 5 stars. So the first one was Legends and Lattes, and I did my first ever reading vlog for this book. So again, I will leave a link below to that if you want to go and check out my reading vlog. I adored this book, really, really loved it. It was like a hug in a book. It was really cozy, really comforting. Absolutely loved it. It was my first like little dip into cozy fantasy. I do want to read a lot more like high fantasy books next year, so I feel like this was a good way to ease myself into the genre. Absolutely loved it. 0 complaints from me. Aside from, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of Viv and Tandra's relationship play out, but all round it was an excellent story. My next book was The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. So if you've seen my Pumpkin Spice Cafe review, you will know that I love the Dream Harbour series, and The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore was another book that I did a reading vlog for. The reading vlog is coming very soon for that, so keep your eyes peeled. I loved it. I know the Dream Harbour series is like Marmite because they are not the most well written books. I completely acknowledge that they are not. But this was just such a fun read, and I think I enjoyed this one more than the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, even though I did rate the Pumpkin Spice Cafe 5 stars as well. I just loved the characters way more in this. This was a lot spicier than the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and just another really fun, really cosy read. Absolutely loved it. And then the next book was a huge surprise for me, and it was The House in the Cerulean Sea. So I had been seeing this book popping up quite a lot, and then really strangely at the same time my mum said that she was going to read it. She's read it before, so she was going to do a reread of it, and I was like, I need to know why everyone talks about this book. I'm just going to go in and read it. I knew very little about it when I went in, so it was pretty much like a blind read for me, and oh my goodness, it blew my mind. Like, if I could, this would be a 6-star read. It was absolutely fantastic. So of course it got 5 stars. I think it's probably my favourite book of the year. I don't think there's going to be any other book that I read this year that will come close to how good this book was. And there's been no other book really that I've read that has been this fantastic. Like, I just absolutely loved it. I laughed, I cried, I just could not get enough of the characters. I adored everything about the book. Easiest 5 stars I've ever given to a book. I just never ever wanted it to end, and very rarely for me I can actually see myself rereading this book. I am not a rereader of books at all, but I do think that this is one that I will go back to because it was just such a beautiful book. And then because I had read The House in the Cerulean Sea, I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go straight onto the sequel. No messing, no breaks, we're going there. So my next book was Somewhere Beyond the Sea. I'm not going to say too much about this because I have filmed an entire video talking about the Cerulean Chronicles, so discussing these 2 books. But this was so disappointing. I rated it 2 stars, but I'll be honest, that was a very generous rating. It probably deserved less. In all fairness, in my opinion, it deserved to be DNF'd, but I carried on reading it because it was the sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea. I just did not click with this book at all. It felt like a completely different novel to The House in the Cerulean Sea. There's been 4 years between the 2 books, and I am not sure what happened in that time to make Somewhere Beyond the Sea as bad as what it was, but I just didn't enjoy it at all. I skim read the book from the 50% mark onwards because I just wanted to be finished with it. It was very preachy, everything was rammed down your throat, like literally every paragraph, and no, I did not like it at all, and it's such a shame that the sequel, in my opinion, was that bad compared to The House in the Cerulean Sea that I don't even want to acknowledge that Somewhere Beyond the Sea exists. Like, The House in the Cerulean Sea did not need a sequel, so I am quite happy to push everything from that sequel out of my mind and just remember The House in the Cerulean Sea for how fantastic it was. And then my 6th and final book for November, I made a start on my Christmas TBR because I am very busy in December and there are some books that I really want to get through in December. So right at the end of November, I was like, right, we're switching, I'm making a start on the Christmas TBR. So I read The Ice Children, which is more of a wintry book rather than a Christmas book, but it was a good start to the Christmas TBR. It is a children's book. It's supposed to have like the Snow Queen vibes to it, but I think it fell a little bit short on that. I ended up rating it 3 stars. It wasn't a bad book, it just didn't hit the marks it was supposed to hit. And again, it was another book that turned very preachy towards the end, and considering that this is a children's book, I think it's aimed at like 8 to 11, I believe Amazon has rated it at. I don't see what 8-year-old is going to click with the message that this book was preaching at the end. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a very important message, but as an adult reading it, it felt very preachy and very in your face, and I'm aware that it needed to be like that because it is a children's book, but like I say, I just can't see the age range that this book is intended for clicking with that message all that much. it needed a little bit more magic in it to get those Snow Queen vibes, I think, and it was just totally missing that. So yeah, 3 stars, an okay read, like fine little ticking it off as my first book for the Christmas TBR, but yeah. So that was my November reading wrap up. 6 books, 3 5-star rated books, 1 very bitterly disappointing book, but overall a really good reading month. We are now into the Christmas books and I'm very excited to read some festive novels, and then before you know it, it'll be time to start thinking about what I want to read next year. I mean, I already know that next year is going to be quite fantasy based, I think, for me, because I really do want to explore that genre a little bit more. But for now, we're just going to enjoy the cute, cosy Christmas books, and I will be, of course, doing my December reading wrap up when I have read all those books. Do let me know if you've read any of these books that I read in November and what your thoughts on them were, and I will see you guys next time.